Exodus 22. After receiving a bunch of random rules about slaves, polygamy, murder, slaves, assault, slaves, abortion, donkeys, and slaves, it's time for more rules from God. This time, we focus on property and social responsibility. Whoever steals an ox or a sheep and slaughters it, or sells it, must pay back 5 head of cattle for the ox and 4 sheep for the sheep. Did you know that the 10 commandments were followed by like 1,000 mini commandments? I think any school district that wants to put up a plaque of the 10 commandments should be obligated to include all these other rules in the Bible, and I think atheists should champion this, because nothing would drive more young people away from God than realizing how much time the Bible wastes explaining the exchange rate for stolen sheep. If a thief is caught breaking in at night and is struck a fatal blow, the defender is not guilty of bloodshed. But if it happens after sunrise, the defender is guilty of bloodshed. Anyone who steals must certainly make restitution, but if they have nothing, they must be sold to pay for their theft. If the stolen animal is found alive in their possession, whether ox or donkey or sheep, they must pay back double. So stand your ground. Unless it's daytime, in which case we'll charge you with murder. But when the sun goes down, God's not paying attention, so murder intruders to your heart's delight. What are those thieves even thinking? Don't these people live in tents in the desert? Even if they're back home, what are you so desperate to grab? The TV? And check out the punishments. If you're a thief, you have to pay a fine. But if you have no money, it's cool. We're just gonna make you a slave. Unless you stole a cow, in which case you owe us 2 slavings. If anyone grazes their livestock in a field or vineyard and lets them stray, and they graze in someone else's field, the offender must make restitution from the best of their own field or vineyard. If a fire breaks out and spreads into thorn bushes so that it burns shocks of grain or standing grain or the whole field, the one who started the fire must make restitution. I still cannot believe how weirdly specific these are. And none of the responses say, turn the other cheek. It's all about how if your cows accidentally go into your neighbor's yard, then you might owe them some crops. And if you start a fire, then you also owe them some crops. They probably started the fire with their TVs. If anyone gives a neighbor silver or goods for safekeeping, and they are stolen from the neighbor's house, the thief, if caught, must pay back double. But if the thief is not found, the owner of the house must appear before the judges, and they must determine whether the owner of the house has laid hands on the other person's property. In all cases of illegal possession of an ox, a donkey, a sheep, a garment, or any other lost property about which somebody says, "This is mine," both parties are to bring their cases before the judges. The one whom the judges declare guilty must pay back double to the other. There's no way they would have written these rules unless this was a problem in need of a solution. How many people are giving their neighbors jewelry to watch over only to have those jewels disappear? See, this is why I write my name on all my sheep. How do the judges even settle these cases? There's no DNA evidence. It's just one person's word against another. Can you imagine the number of false convictions? And that's assuming these judges are reasonable people. But who knows? Depends which president nominated them. If anyone gives a donkey, an ox, a sheep, or any other animal to their neighbor for safekeeping, and it dies, or is injured, or is taken away while no one is looking, the issue between them will be settled by the taking of an oath before the Lord that the neighbor did not lay hands on the other person's property. The owner is to accept this, and no restitution is required. But if the animal was stolen from the neighbor, restitution must be made to the owner. If it was torn to pieces by a wild animal, the neighbor shall bring in the remains as evidence and shall not be required to pay for the torn animal. These people are just all walking into court with animal carcasses. And then we wonder how pandemics get started. Okay, here's how I would get away with the perfect crime. I would get a donkey from my neighbor and say I'm taking care of it. Then I would hide it and claim it died on its own because another animal attacked it. Then I would show the judge the animal carcass of an older dead donkey, because how would anyone know the difference? What's the judge gonna do? Make me take an oath before the Lord? Like, yeah, sure, judge. And then I would just keep borrowing donkeys and reusing the old carcass until one of my stolen donkeys dies, at which point I repeat the process with the newer dead donkey, for hygienic purposes. And this is how I build my donkey monopoly. By the time they figure out what I'm doing, I'll just ride away on my donkey caravan and settle into a new land. I would be such a good Christian, you guys. If anyone borrows an animal from their neighbor and it is injured or dies while the owner is not present, they must make restitution. But if the owner is with the animal, the borrower will not have to pay. If the animal was hired, the money paid for the hire covers the loss. Have you ever let your neighbor borrow your tools and you never get them back? Now imagine a new set of laws for each tool and a different set of punishments depending on how they disappeared. And that's the Bible. Anyway, we're finally done with the donkey section. Now the fun part, the rules about how people interact with each other. If a man seduces a virgin who is not pledged to be married and sleeps with her, he must pay the bride price, and she shall be his wife. If her father absolutely refuses to give her to him, he must still pay the bride price for virgins. If you sleep with someone, she's your wife now. Unless her daddy says no, in which case she's probably worth at least a few bucks, so give it to him. What if you assault her? Same thing. As for what the woman thinks about all this, I'm sure that's going to be in the next verse. What? No? No one in the Bible cares? No. Got it. Do not allow a sorceress to live. Well, that got dark quickly. First of all, if she's a sorceress, then she probably gets to decide who lives, not you. Second, where did you meet a sorceress? Good for you. Third, this is a literal witch hunt. I guess everyone just forgot about thou shalt not kill, or maybe they just never got around to reading the fine print. As the old joke goes, the entire Bible is like the terms and conditions that pop up when you install software. No one reads it, you just scroll down to the bottom and click I agree. And that, my friends, is how you become a Christian. Anyone who has sexual relations with an animal is to be put to death. You know what? Fine. The death penalty is always wrong, except maybe in this case. Though I just want to point out that banging your cow warrants the death penalty, but assaulting a virgin just means you gotta give her daddy some cash. Whoever sacrifices to any god other than the Lord must be destroyed. Nothing says just have faith like someone adding on, I mean in me, you idiot, now prepare to die. And who are these other gods just lingering around? Why doesn't God just kill them off instead of threatening those other gods' followers? It's not like he's busy doing anything useful. Do not mistreat or oppress a foreigner, for you were foreigners in Egypt. Has anyone pointed out this verse to Republicans? Aren't they the ones who keep bragging about how much they love the Bible? I find it hard to take seriously a rule that says do not mistreat foreigners from a God who's killed off entire cities. Do not take advantage of the widow or the fatherless. If you do, and they cry out to me, I will certainly hear their cry. My anger will be aroused, and I will kill you with the sword. Your wives will become widows, and your children fatherless. The implication here is that you can take advantage of women if their daddies are still around, because if they complain, God's not gonna listen and you will face no consequences. Who's your daddy is no longer talking dirty. It's a first date question, because you need to know if your own death is on the table later tonight. Also, did you hear what God said? Your wives will become widows. Plural. That's all. There is also an inherent problem here. God is saying don't take advantage of women who lost their husbands or fathers because they're suffering, and that would be cruel, and it's unfair to the kids. And if you do, I will kill you and make your wives suffer because I'm cruel and I don't care about your kids. If you lend money to one of my people among you who is needy, do not treat it like a business deal. Charge no interest. If you take your neighbor's cloak as a pledge, return it by sunset, because that cloak is the only covering your neighbor has. What else can they sleep in? When they cry out to me, I will hear, for I am compassionate. I really don't understand God listing out exactly whose cries he'll pay attention to. Because if the answer isn't everybody, why is he even God? If someone's needy, wouldn't a better rule be give them what you can and don't ask for anything back? The way God sets this up, you can give a homeless person cash, but you're well within your rights to demand repayment down the road, just without interest. That's still weird. That's like a GoFundMe page where you get to demand your money back after a few months. I am compassionate, says the God who literally called for the execution of sorceresses a second ago. Do not blaspheme God or curse the ruler of your people. Come on, man, what else are they supposed to do? If you can't complain about your boss or your boss's boss, every workplace would be horrible. Do not hold back offerings from your granaries or your vats. You must give me the firstborn of your sons. Donate generously. Also, your first child is mine. Why are those two things together? Also, no! We've already seen what God does to firstborn sons. You think I'm just giving up mine after you just committed genocide against that exact group? Haha, fool me twice. Shame on me. He obviously means those firstborn boys have to become priests, but it's still a dumb rule. Don't tell people how to live their lives. What are you, an Indian mother? Do the same with your cattle and your sheep. Let them stay with their mothers for 7 days, but give them to me on the 8th day. You are to be my holy people. So do not eat the meat of an animal torn by wild beasts. Throw it to the dogs. No reasonable person has ever said, I'll babysit on day 8. I'm sure the babies are housebroken by then, right? And why would they eat animal meat torn apart by wild beasts when we need it around to fool a judge? Forget the dogs, I'm keeping that carcass in the closet, thank you very much. You never know when you might need it. Come on, give the dogs better food. They deserve it. We're still not done with the rules, but this chapter is just wild. We went from the 10 Commandments, which has about 2 valid rules, to the 1,000 mini commandments, which make even less sense. And there are still more because God forgot so many things in Exodus 20.